shows, and it always looks like a terrible CG test.
Yeah. It's like the CG for the movie was here, and then the CG for the show
looks like something that I can.
Well, I think a part of it is because
Take it back
you have
to
to do
the
it so
insurance.
quickly.
well, yeah. But also when you bake a 3D rendered scene, you can actually equate per second the exact cost of rendering processing time, and in some of the Pixar ones, sometimes it'd be like several hours for just a few minutes worth of it. So, they probably just half rated it or something like that, just to be able to. They literally probably cut the cost of the film just so they didn't have to bake their machines nearly as long as what they would do for the higher.
I mean, it's
CG stuff.
It's a combination of wireframing, mocap, and then traditional step-by-step animation.
Well, and also you would think though that they wouldn't be so cheap to do it because they already have a lot of the assets. Like that initial cost of designing all of the models is something, but once you have the movie,
time on the computers,
probably that's
what I mean?
probably it. That's probably a lot more money. All right, so what we're gonna do is, like I said, I'm gonna spend about 20 to 30 minutes on each one of these aspects. I broke up the whole AI in three different major categories: metaphysics, biological, and technological. And the reason I did in these different categories is because I believe that these are the main areas of counter arguments. Because there's so many different individuals who say that something like that can't be done because, and then you might have a first group that will have all of these metaphysical reasons.
Okay.
And I do address them, not all, but enough that I feel like for the book and to go forward onward. Then you have another group of people who are neurologists and understand a little bit more about the physiology of the human brain, and it is daunting. It's daunting enough that I can see why some people might have merit in arguing that something in an analog format can never be truly represented in a digital format. So these individuals say that it can't be done from a chemistry or biology reasons on why. And then I have things concerning about that. And then finally, the people who are saying that we don't have the technology to be able to build that. That's a little bit longer because it's not just doing counter arguments. It's actually explaining how to do that specific aspect of the technology that would be required. So there may not necessarily, even though this section is the longest, there may not necessarily be, these can be equally, I think, 20, 20, and 20 as far as minutes, or 23 minutes on each one, because a lot of these things aren't necessarily something that needs to be debated from a perspective point. It'll just be, can I accurately explain the mechanics behind that particular piece of technology? Like, how does the GPUs work and stuff like that. So that's not really open too much, even to my interpretation. It's just schematics and stuff like that. Yeah. So, but it is enough that we can talk about it.
Okay.
So yeah, I just kind of want to go over it a little tiny bit, and I'll try to explain it. I'll put a timer, or I'll just keep track of it here. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. If you could do that, that'd be great, because I'm doing recording and I don't want to switch out between apps.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic.
So yeah, just give me. We'll do 20 minutes, and you can give me maybe like a 5 minute warning, I guess, toward the end, and then we can decide whether we want to extend it or not. But I'll let you guys decide that versus me, so that way we're both in it together somehow. Okay. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So on the first, the reason I wanted to put in this subject matter first versus second or third is because it's the hardest one to do. And the reason why it's the hardest one to do is because a lot of people experience reality very subjectively. And in fact, you can almost say that it's impossible not to not experience life subjectively. And when you're in a situation where there's so much variety of how any one individual could be doing that experience. For any other someone to say something to the effect of, oh, there's some way that you can do an AI. If a person just simply has it where that's not even possible in their reality, if there's no discussion even allowed, then I'm going to go ahead and just concede ahead of time to those individuals. Okay. Like there's got to be, like, I can't convince someone who won't allow to, and I'm not saying that in a negative way, but I'm also not going to argue it either. Like, I'm going to concede to that for the ones who just say it just can't, because if you start off from there, then I don't have any room to say anything, and I'm just going to respect that particular explanation of it, and nothing I can say in this entire first schema will change someone's mind at all.
I mean, that's just kind of that's the purpose of science.
Sure,
when someone shuts down the discussion with it can't be done,
right,
then there's no discussion. There's no investigation. So
I'm okay. I'm okay with that, because I'm not necessarily trying to prove to everyone that this is the right way.
Right.
Hopefully the audience that I'm trying to go to is just ones that if there's a flaw in my reasoning, I'm open to that. But as long as you're open to reasoning, I'm not necessarily saying that you have to agree with what I say, but at least we can have a discussion anyway. A discussion anyway. Yeah. Okay, so that's what right here I start talking about subjective and objective is where I kind of want to get started. And the initial ones to get to here is the fact that as human culture goes, and again, it's very difficult for us to know for sure what went on in the minds of the individuals who were around before writing.
Right.
Because after writing, we kind of had a better idea of what maybe some people were thinking anyway.
The only thing that we can go... I heard this on... I was listening. I don't know if it was a podcast or a TV show.
Information you have.
You go based on the information that you have, but it's kind of like just skipping ahead a little bit to where you're talking about evolution. Evolution is not like you kind of got the information you kind of didn't. No, it's like something worked, therefore we know it worked. So here's the information that was passed on. If it didn't work, we don't have it.
Or sometimes it's almost like this is what we get, the best we have right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the cool. That's one of the cool things about science is like they're open to being wrong.
Yeah.
But if you have something that fits a lot of like right now, there isn't one explanation that answers all questions. There isn't. Not all questions. Now but you do have some explanations that answer most questions, and then some that do a poorer job of explaining. They'll leave more questions open. So as science goes forward, they keep trying to modify their explanations, and when sometimes it's only in hindsight that it just seems so obvious. But it's something like evolution. Looking back on it, seems obvious. But I mean, we're talking about like during the time where they didn't understand like anything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like with evolution, and kind of digging into the objective versus subjective, like. We're still trying to figure out what evolution even is.
Sure, we're still trying to figure out everything. Yeah, we've only recently started answering our own questions because for the longest time we had questions longer than we've had answers.
Yes.
And I know we have a lot of answers that go back quite a ways, but those questions must have existed before even then. And so I kind of want to start off with just a little tiny bit of an idea what those kind of questions are for individuals who aren't familiar with the baseline questions, the ones that transcend culture, the basic ones. Who am I? Why am I here? Is this all that there is to it? The problem with it, let's say it's something now that it's identifiable. Okay, now it's something that we can start going forward as that it is something that can be tackled. Right here, you end up having a break between people who are literalist, like there is no free will, that we're just kind of like machines, like we're just like kind of animals. Yeah, and then there's people that believe that there's more than just that base amount. Yeah. So later on, I'll explain that argument, but then I'll start going through for the people who believe that there's more. What are these list of criteria? Because these are the things that we value as the essence, almost as human nature, because we consider them more than just animals. And these are some of the things that we consider ourselves separated from us from animals, certain things. And then I talk a little bit about the matrix, about how, and that conversation we had earlier on the way here, about like if that's what it is, then we might as well just like, that's another dead end in the argument, just as much as the other one. Like I don't want to hear anything for someone to say that nothing is real, we're all a program, and anything that you try to do to prove not otherwise is also part of the program. So you're kind of stuck in this like.
That's jumping to conclusions.
I can disagree with dismissing that as being like a dead end.
Let's say we are a program. Let's just say this is what I was telling her. Let's say we are. Okay, then what's the answer after that? Like, if that's all we are, then there's almost like we either try to find out why the program is running, or like there's got to be something more than just saying that we're in a program. Because even if that was true, then that would really make us almost not responsible for anything that we're supposed to be doing if that's all that it is.
Well, I would say that doesn't logically follow.
It raises some different questions. It raises what type of program.
Like, let's say, hypothetical, there was 100% proof right now that we found out that all three of us, there is no corporeal form, we're running in a simulation, all the memories that we have, we just came online yesterday or an hour ago, and we just have memories that we were raised. The only thing, that we just came online a few moments ago. If you had proof of that, and you also had proof that that was how inconsequential our universe is, something that could just be turned on and off with a switch, and the only time we ever know that it's on is because it's running, and when it's off, we don't even know because it's not running.
Isn't that reality?
Well, let's say, but let's say for sure we found out that we're for real a computer program.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel like that information would give you the responsibility to go about life differently, or do you feel like if that was the case, it although interesting, it wouldn't necessarily fundamentally change your decisions from day to day?
I think that if like there was a way to demonstrate that type of like realization about reality, like okay, we are essentially simulations, or we are programs in the simulation, or whatever.
Maybe a wallpaper on some alien machine.
So, I mean, just like what information does, what humans do, I think what would happen, and I think it would be a responsible thing to do, is push the boundaries, figure out what are the limits of my abilities, and then what's the limitations of my personal growth.
Well,
because that's the question. But it raises a couple other questions, like.
Well, would you not want to try to do that now?
Yeah, absolutely. That's
so that doesn't change whether you find out you're in a program or not.
No, but that's the thing. That's my point about like consciousness and self-awareness. And I guess you would say actualization, where you want to take the self and push, grow it to the limits, pushing the boundaries of reality.
So
what you're able to know,
if you found out that you were really just a software program, let's say, if we were NPCs, well, because we're certainly not the character that's going around being plain.
Right.
Okay. If you found out that you were an NPC, you don't think that would take away a little bit from your overall desire of betterment?
I don't know. It's kind of all right.
So that's what I'm saying.
I would say
even
that
if
it
it's
changes, like, one, the path that you would choose towards it, and two, your perception of the ends thereof. It's the same basic issue that the existentialists always struggled with. Combination of how do you deal with the issue, like what Albert Camus referred to as the absurd? How do you deal with the fact that we seek meaning in an apparently, or in his opinion, he thought it was objectively meaningless world, going in that self-creation and self-discovery? The only thing that changes is it affects what your base assumptions were. So if you already had a base assumption that life is objectively meaningless, you have to create your own meaning. I don't have an infinite past, I don't have an infinite future, then functionally you have no difference. There is a difference for people who say, like a lot of shamanistic cultures or animistic cultures, or like Hinduism, for example, where you believe that you have no beginning, you have no end, you are essentially eternal through and through, and therefore your purpose and your end is affected by that. For them, it's more finding duty and your purpose in reality and the way you fit into reality and following that to an end as opposed to creating it from scratch. Just like how within Judeo-Christian theology and their worldview, you have a set beginning, but we have no end. Therefore, the path that we strive forward is with the idea that everyone's immortal, everyone's eternal. You're struggling with that issue, and you still have sort of a soul-making process in the meantime. No matter what it's just redefining what that base thing, and it narrows down what those base parameters are.
Because one of the reasons why I feel like it's important to try to tackle such an ethereal subject is because even if, let's say, I had something up and running, these are the kind of things that I would imagine, try to hold whatever it is that's up and running as a bar, if we would consider that thing also sentient. Maybe not necessarily come to our conclusions, but if there was no self-reflection, like the fact that we're even aware of our own existence is almost the same as the ability of breaking the fourth wall, and it's difficult, and it's difficult to try to pinpoint exactly what that is, because almost with it, whatever we say is within the definition of our own reality. So it's difficult to kind of objectively step back and say this is consciousness, or this is how I perceive things.
Yeah. Just real quick,
sure.
A way to, a way to look at it from my perspective is this: think about our socioeconomic system. So. We do have a class system, and certain people are supposed to behave a certain way within the class. And when a person finds themselves being able to cross those lines, it disrupts the system. It shows that the system is either it's an artificial construct meant to maintain a certain type of order, whether you know what that order is or not, or it means that there is a flaw in the system that allows people to cross it. So either let me start. So for instance, a person, we have people who are born quote unquote poverty, right? And there are certain assumptions and certain things that are supposed to be like, well, these things that happen for people in poverty is what they're supposed to do. We have so many stories of people who were in poverty who have become super rich, and it makes the system look like it really doesn't work. It doesn't function. It's not. It's an artificial system. But so many people function within that system as if it was concrete, as if it was like these are solid barriers. And we even have people who are fighting against it, but their fight even serves the system itself. So a way to look at it is, you have a consciousness. You are a consciousness within a machine, and there are ways to function in that. But if you become aware of how it works, wouldn't you want to either A, put yourself in the most favorable position in the machine, or B, remove yourself from it?
And also it depends if when you find out the truth about exactly how.
Yeah.
maybe the how is disconcerting enough that maybe it'll change your idea. The reason I bring that up is humans have a very narrow bandwidth of what they're able to do to perceive reality, whether it's our vision, smell, sense of time even. We're only doing snapshots of stuff and basic equipment that's just for our species. But we're missing out on so much. Not only that, but even our ability to have those points that you're mentioning. Not all the people are as poignant about that self-realization than others. Right. Because I think that consciousness is a little overrated. Because it's not as, I think, strong and as... Not everyone's conscious. That's almost like everyone has two arms, so to speak. I mean, I guess some people that don't, but then there's also people that probably aren't quite conscious either. Like, our brain does the best it can with what it has.
Yes.
And whatever it's missing, it fills in the rest.
So then that's part of my question. So... when you learn that you are limited, when you learn that you're handicapped in some way, would not the desire to create enhancements, create
I think some people might react that way.
You know?
I mean, everyone's going to react to it differently.
Yeah.
So my to kind of I know we overwent a little bit, but we're almost wrapping up to this. So then my theory of 0-0 towards the end of it is a little bit more on the point that we had on the way of the conversation here. Two things. One, it's a two-part point of the theory. One, it's kind of a perverse version of that Pascal's wager. That although there might be a potential probability that we are just all wallpaper on someone's machine, that I'm just going to go with that we're not. And like, because the alternative, I think, doesn't help, because I already have those motivations regardless. And I would still have them if that was the case, because I also agree with you, believe it or not, almost verbatim. We still got 2 minutes. But here's the second part, though. I also, and I'll allude to this a little bit more lined out than what I'm doing right now. I believe that reality itself is procedurally generated around you, yourself, and everyone else, where everyone else is the center of their own universe. But their universe only extends to the limits of their perception of, like, seeing stuff or hearing stuff or reading stuff or whatever the case is.
I will totally agree with that. Let me tell you, I was hanging out with a friend shopping, and she was all distracted by, like, colorful things. She's like, "Don't you see this?" I'm like, "I didn't see that until you pointed it out to me."
In other words, every female friend you've ever had.
And the question was, how do you not see this? I said, because I choose to narrow my perception.
And sometimes that choice isn't done. Like, it's almost like holding your breath. Sometimes you could do it on purpose by holding your breath, and then sometimes it's being done. You're breathing without knowing.
But it's a coping mechanism for my brain, because I don't want to be overstimulated.
Well, not only that, but at the end of the day, how do you prove that it's not true? Because as soon as you extend your perception over to a device, an experiment, that encompasses part of the explanation of what I'm saying about procedurally generated. Like all of North America existed for forever, but in the consciousness of the minds of the Europeans or the Westerners, it didn't.
Yeah.
And it was almost like there was another planet. Like, all of a sudden we found out that there was not just people on Mars, but there was an entire civilization this whole entire time.
Right.
You know? And I would argue that you're both, in a certain way, conflating experience with reality. Just because you haven't experienced something doesn't mean that it isn't real.
That's my argument, that it very is, though. That's the case. Very similar to and I know that physics on a what's the word? Quantum scale doesn't scale up. But if you try to narrow down the electrons on atoms themselves, there is no specific point in time that they exist until we observe it. They're all they have is just a cloud probability.
Yeah.
So all we are is highly probable. It's like, for example, the probability that the sun will rise up tomorrow is really, 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 really high. But, all the things that I perceive the reality, because that's the whole thing about being subjective and objective. Let's say the whole thing, let's say not even not observant, let's say you're colorblind. Mm-hmm. In your world, in your reality, that might be green. And in my world, in our reality, it'd be red. Who's right? We're both right. We're both right. It's red in my reality and it's green in your reality. And this is one of the reasons why I personally believe that would probably explain a lot of the things of supernatural, because I have my theory on a lot of it is that it did exist, but in their reality. Not to say that mine is more real than yours. We are intersecting our realities, almost like bubbles or like gravitational fields that overlap. And then sometimes between the two, you might potentially between the two have a more accurate representation of what you guys can recall of like an event or whatever, if you're guys both describing like reality. But it's almost like, what would be a point of a universe that had no planets, no stars, no anything, an entire universe that was void, that was empty space? It almost might as well not count. I mean, you could probably argue that something like that out there that it does, but if it's not interacting with any other reality and there's no other energy, matter transfer or nothing, then at that point you might as well be talking about an abstract thought.
Once again, you're conflating reality with experience, because you're saying if you're both experiencing something, it's implying that there is something to be experienced outside of both of them.
No, it's like they're bubbles. Like, I don't believe that we're even capable of truly having a objective reality.
And I would say that sort of system is in and of itself incoherent.
And well, it's even like why eyewitness testimony is so poorly counted on, because people make up stuff afterwards, and they say
they
that
don't
even
try. It's just,
yeah.
But at the same time, that doesn't change what happened.
But you can't prove it one way or the other. Look, let's say if you do a recording,
and that issue is epistemological, not ontological. You're not arguing whether or not something is or is not.
I'm saying that you can't prove.
Cannot be known.
Yeah, you cannot prove something existed without observing to see if it existed.
But that does not entail or follow that it does.
Okay. There's another reason why. Conservation of energy, and our perception of everything around us.
Thermodynamics.
Yeah, I mean, like why there's no edges to the universe. If you get to the edge of the universe, you come back on ominous stuff, almost like a Morbius strip, like a flatlander going on around on this Morbius strip infinitely forever. And a space is like that, and I think our perception of reality is also like that, in the same sense of like, if you're not aware of it, that you had no idea it existed, for all intents and purposes, as long as it's not affecting you in any kind of way, then it might as well not exist.
And that leads to the second part of my sort of rebuttal there, because once again, the distinction you're making is epistemological, not ontological. It's arguing how can we know it and that we cannot know it, not necessarily.
One of the reasons why I bring it up in this direction is because it sets up on the thing that I'm going to build. Okay, because let's say right now, hypothetical, we were inside of a matrix, but this time it's not against our will. We're right now sitting down with glasses on our heads, and we're nicely comfortable, all three of us. And right now it looks as real as it is right here at this moment. It would be much more easier to have a program that's running, let's say, if you didn't have to generate the entire world or the entire universe. We're only having to do us right here, right now. Like, if we were to leave, it would be a way to solve the problem of how to back up the mind and how to make an alternate dimension. One of the things is you just don't make it all. You don't have to have something that's calculating everything. Yeah, you just have to have something that's calculating.
That's making a similar argument.
Yeah, so it's like it's something that can be designed, because it's not. Some people might say that it would take too much to replicate an entire universe, and my argument about that is if you wouldn't have to, all you have to do is just make it where it extends to the just to the perceptions of the individuals who are the people. So anything outside of that perception doesn't have to be calculated, and it doesn't have to be rendered. It's in a state of like flux.
And if all you're doing is making a pragmatic decision on how to implement an AI system then yeah, that's all you have to concern yourself.
I see what you're saying. No, okay. No. Now I get what you're saying. No. Okay, my bad. No. I see. No, I apologize. No. Because there's a theme for this whole book.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. No. Now I understand why you were saying it. No.
Now we're on the same.
Yeah, no. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I believe that after the thing is built, if I can meet these requirements that we value in the real world, then it can be indistinguishable from the real world.
Right.
Even if the real world works on a objectively different physics, if we can't tell the difference, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that that's what the case is.
Human epistemology, in which case, that's the only.
Because then that's what we're trying to record. That's what we're trying to emulate. We're not trying to emulate reality. We're trying to emulate artificial intelligence. So my explanation is how I believe artificial intelligence experiences reality, and that's the only aspect that we have to reconstruct. Is just the methodology of how we experience that reality, not necessarily that you have to build an entire you don't have to build a reality. You don't necessarily even have to build a human the way we think we perceive on how many humans are being built.
Are we talking about VR or AI?
Both, because that's where I'm merging the two things together. And we're going to go to the second one because that's a good segue. That's a perfect segue, and we're going to go into the second part. Unless there was, I wanted to do that too with my recording too.